Have you ever noticed these weird gaps when you're analyzing charts for your stock? No, not that type of gap. If you're coming from Forex or you're trading indices and things of that nature, you don't really see these gaps, but you typically will see it in the stock market. Well, I'm going to explain to you what they are and how you can benefit them as traders, predicting where price will go based on these gaps. So, not going to waste your time. Let's go ahead and dive into it. So according to Investopedia, gaps typically occur when a piece of news or an event causes a flood of buyers or sellers into the security. It results in price opening or closing significantly higher than when it originally closed the previous day. So let's go ahead and watch an example on Tesla. I'm going to look at the 1 hour chart, and all we're looking for are these gaps right here, right? So this here is considered a gap up. Why is it considered a gap up? Is because price originally closed below and it's shot to the upside. Gaps occur when there is news happening and it brings a flux of buyers or sellers. In this case, it brought a flux of buyers into the market here. So that's considered a gap up here. Now let's go ahead and look at this gap down here. So as I go in the past, we can see price ended here. This was the day prior. And what happens is before the next day at 9:30 a.m. EST, a candle forms right here. This is considered a gap down. And the reason why is because there was some big news that happened significantly that brought sellers into the market and they released their shares. If we look here, this is why I like TradingView. If we look closer, you see this E. If I click on it, this is the earnings and revenue report for Tesla, and it's red, indicating that they had bad news. I'm not going to go too far into earnings report because I have a completely new video. If you look back on my videos here about earnings and revenues report, we go deep into it. But just to show you very briefly here, we can look at their revenues right here, and they are minus 837.528 million. So this brought sellers into the market. They released their shares and it dropped significantly, and then it continued to drop. How can you trade gap downs? So what I typically like to do is listen to the news. At that point, I don't know if it's going to be positive or negative, but I see that it is negative, and you can see price dropping down. At that time, I would like to enter, but I'm looking at this as resistance. This is my new resistance point here. I would like to sell, and it just depends on how much you're looking to gain. So that's completely up to you. We'll get into that in another video, but this is my resistance zone. So if price comes back to this in the future, remember I'm on the hour time frame, price come back to this area in the future, I would like to sell. Now I'm not selling just because it comes back to in the future. I'm making sure that there's no negative news in the future that happens, because, or positive news, because if it does, it can break this or continue to sell. If it's just normal news, I know that this is resistance. And so anywhere within this zone here, I would be selling. I'm looking for wick rejection like this, and I would sell. Now you can see further on in the future, there was another gap here. This must have been positive news because it gapped up. Now you want to do the exact same thing. We have a gap up, so that means it's positive news. Now this is my support zone. So I'm going to just type support right here. And then on this side, this is my support zone here. And then also this is my resistance zone here. So I want to make sure that in the future, if price comes back to fill this, then this will be around my resistance zone, maybe even future support. All right. So this is my support zone. And if I continue drawing this, if it comes back to this area, just as long as there's no crazy news happening at this time, I would buy around here. All right. So now remember, I talked about my resistance zone here. So this is the gap. Here's my resistance zone around this zone here. So if price happens to break through my support zone, now I'm looking left as my resistance, and I would sell when price comes around this area, right? And now this is my new support zone. So I would exit before it gets to my new support zone. Same thing. It came back here and it sold off until it breaks higher. So that's how you can trade gaps. So there's gap ups, which is a bullish gap. There's gap downs, which is a bearish gap. And then there's gap fills. Now gap fills is when price breaks just like it did here. And then it eventually comes back to fill the original gap. So this will be considered a gap fill right here. And so I'm just going to clean my chart up here. Price shot to the downside. So I'm going to draw this out for you. Here's our gap down. Price did its thing. It moved and then eventually came back to fill the original gap here. So that's considered a gap fill. This is how you can trade gap ups, gap downs, and gap fills. And I like to use this strategy every single time. And I like to look at the lower time frame because I start to look at candle behavior before I just make a blind entry. But this is a known strategy for stock traders because it just simply works. It's all about price, it's all about supply and demand, and understanding what's going on fundamentally meaning what's going on with the news of a company. So guys, that's it. This is a brand new stock channel. I want you to look in the description below. We have a new Discord group you can join. That's where I will be sending free education. I will give you my updates on my YouTube videos, give you trade ideas for different stocks, and we're just learning, having fun. So join it right below here. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a comment and don't forget to share because there are a lot of people who are looking to learn stocks. And because this is brand new, I'm going to start from the beginning to advance. I only have about 5 or 6 videos so far, so look from the beginning to advance if you're brand new at stocks and you're wanting to learn. We even cover ETFs and indices as well if you're looking to learn. A lot of people like to learn stocks just for supplemental income or even full-time income or even retirement. So stocks is really good to invest in or just to learn eventually in your lifetime. I wasn't afforded the opportunity to learn stocks when I was young based on when I came up from because it wasn't afforded for us. Stocks was typically traded for the wealthy. There are a lot of people like myself who couldn't afford to get in the stock market. So join the Discord group below and I will see you in the next video. God bless.